Hello, everybody. Welcome to Profiling Evil by Mike King. I'm here tonight with Chris McDonough, and we are following up after Thanksgiving. Chris, how are you doing tonight?
I am still in turkey coma.
Doing great. Nothing like that. How did you guys handle family and all of that during the holiday?
You know, this year was kind of just a laid back year for us. We just kind of hung around. Mom made dinner. I mean, everything just fell into place. It was awesome. It was great to, just kind of relax every once in a while, right? We've been busy.
Yeah.
How about you guys?
It was great.
Did you guys go to the cabin?
No. Bonnie cooked a huge meal like she does every year. And this year we packaged it up and took it to the kids' houses, put it on their doorsteps, rang the doorbell and said, enjoy your COVID-free interaction. And everybody kind of stayed at home and did their own thing. It was really pretty dang nice. I really enjoyed it, actually. Really quiet.
I heard one of your son makes a mean key lime pie.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. They all did something a little different, and we kind of shared some things, and it was actually pretty fun. We'll probably be doing the same thing at Christmas time, which is kind of hard not to be able to gather, but I guess there's a time and place for it. I'm looking down this list of people, Chris, and gosh, yeah, everybody is signing in tonight. It's choir practice, folks, and I'm going to do something a little different. I'd like you all to answer what choir practice is and why we call it choir practice, and just put it in the chat room so that we can have everybody see it. But Nicole Marie, great to see you. Miss Sophia, AB, Red Like Wine, High Priestess Illumination, so good to have you back with us. Cody Frank, or Coda Frank, I'm so sorry. Vicki Dodd, Diane Culvert. Folks, this is choir practice, and if you're not a subscriber to Profiling Evil, we sure would love to have you hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so that you get the notifications. And if you're interested, look at our membership programs. Next week we'll be having our monthly meeting with our members, where we spend some one-on-one time. We actually bring the members on and chat live. It's always a pretty enjoyable evening. What else has been going on, Chris?
Well, we've got, retired RM43 in the house here. And hey, shout out, that reminds me, shout out to all the public safety personnel who had to work over Thanksgiving. We appreciate your service, and our military folks out there, and veterans who are overseas, serving us and keeping us safe, and giving up their time from their families, and to the families that are home waiting for their loved ones to come home, both on public safety and the military side. We're grateful for them. We've got Danielle Ravel Baker in the house. Mike, we got Miss Sophia, as you mentioned. Who else do we have here? I'm going to go down. Four Sons
Holly
Mom.
W., thank you for that super sticker. Really appreciate that.
Avalon Apples. I love that one. It's fall too. Who doesn't love apples in the fall? Good job. Bambi Golden. Hi, Sandra. Well, I just said it for you. Hi, Sandra. Barb Newman. Good to see you. Cameron, Lisa, Marie, Andy Crayons is with us tonight. And Carlina.
Soul Speaker. Soul Speaker, Danielle Reville Baker, Kimberly Lebert. Thank you, everybody. This is kind of a interesting week. We're going to be talking about missing persons. And tomorrow we want to invite y'all. Chris and I will be on the Dr. Phil show tomorrow. So please tune in and see that. We've been fortunate. He's invited us back several times, and we really appreciate it. We actually were invited to help a young woman by the name of Ellie Green, who's looking for her mother who disappeared. And we would, again, invite you all to look at that show tomorrow. And then after that, Ellie's going to come on the show, not tomorrow, but in the coming days or weeks. And we're going to talk about her mom's missing persons case out of Kansas. So we hope you'll do that. And Chris, I just sent off the book, all the edits are finished, and it's on its way to the printer. We're hoping that if all goes well, before the end of the year, we'll start shipping. So if back in the back office, we could pull up something on the web page, I just ask you all to consider going and pre-ordering the book Deceived. It will be out by January 1, hopefully a few days before the year is out. And you can order that online by going to this pre-order button. As soon as it is out, then we'll start looking at some other options, like getting it into some other venues, audiobook, and also the electronic version, the Kindle kind of version. So really excited. We're finally there.
It's a long road for you, Mr. King, to get to this point. And I just pray and wish you the greatest as always. You know, it's going to be an amazing read. If people, I mean, they're just getting just very small pieces of it so far, but there's a tremendous amount of stories in this book. There's no question. Lisa Marie, thank you so much. We appreciate your kindness there, and you love our channel. Well, we can't do it without you guys. We're very grateful for your kindness there. And I saw we had Miss Snoopy up there, Callie girl from Miss Snoopy, new member with us, Mike. And then we have Sophie H. Hi, Sophie. Let's see here. We got Cheryl Lynn. I'm a Sturgis. I love these names. This is amazing. Jojo Ole. How do I pronounce that? How do you pronounce that?
I missed that one, but I saw Andrea's note here. She's sending us all to school. Yes, choir practice is when the squad gets together at the end of the shift to talk about whatever happened or whatever they want to discuss. So yeah, thanks, Andrea. You got it, and keep pouring it in, folks. And for all of you who have been submitting to the evidence room, and if the back office could pop up the evidence room for a minute, let's just talk about that for a second. But we established the evidence room as a place where you can send information. And there are questions from time to time of whether we actually forward on things that should be forwarded on and what we do with that. We do take a time to look at each one of those and try to understand what the best course of action would be, including trying to figure out what we can fit into our limited bandwidth to go ahead and look at as cases. And sadly, the cases just keep piling up. And tonight, we're going to talk about missing persons. And probably this is a great time to bring in our guest, Chris. Let's bring in, if we've got Meaghan here from the Charley Project. We are so thrilled. And if we can, we may have lost Meaghan for just a moment. So she'll be right back. But folks, if you haven't been to the Charley Project, let's look at their webpage for a minute while we get Meaghan back. We might have lost her for a moment. But the Charley Project is a organization that looks at unsolved cold cases and missing persons cases, and they try to kind of aggregate all of this information together. Chris, they've been around for a really long time, and of course we're really fortunate tonight. We'll see if we can get Meaghan back connected again. It looks like we've lost her connection, and we'll talk about that case. But oh, here we go. We got her back, it looks like.
She's coming in. She just had a little internet problem there.
Oh, for some reason.
There we go.
There we go. We like to introduce everyone to Meaghan Good of the Charley Project. Meaghan, how are you?
I'm doing good.
Great. Why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself, Meaghan? And folks, you're going to be mesmerized as you listen to Meaghan tonight describing the work that she does. But Meaghan, just tell us a little bit about Meaghan Good first.
Well, I live in Indiana, and I've been working on the Charley Project pretty much my entire adult life. I started in 2004, and I was 19 years old at the time. And
Go ahead.
got autism, and I've got bipolar disorder, and I'm a little bit crazy and a little bit weird. But the Charley Project is, I see it as my way of serving society.
That's awesome. So tell us about what drove it. How did you get here? What brought you to the Charley Project? How did you get there?
I got interested in missing people when I was about 12 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about people with autism is we all have what we call our special interests, our really obsessive interest in this really like a narrow, esoteric topic.
Mm-hmm.
Like one example I like to give is of a guy who, back in the days when they had streetcars, he was obsessed with streetcars, and he was constantly looking at streetcar maps and streetcar schedules and could tell you how to get from place to place by streetcar in cities he had never visited in his life, because he was just so obsessed with how they worked and where they went and everything. And I'm like that with missing people.
Okay.
This is fantastic. Meaghan, I don't know if you're seeing any of the comments streaming in, but people are shouting out hellos to you and welcome. Hi. And it's really fun, and everyone is really excited that you're here. When you talked about how you sometimes obsess with things, and it looks like you have a black cat.
Yeah, she wants to say hi too.
You probably won't offend one person on here with that cat. Maybe Buddy.
Meaghan, if you can speak up a little, there are a couple people who have said they're having a little bit of a hard time hearing you. But when you say you obsess with things as a characteristic of autism, what was it about missing persons that you obsessed over?
I'm not really sure. It just kind of happened one day. I stumbled on the website for the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children when I was 12 years old, and it was like it reached out and grabbed me by the throat and never. And it's been that way ever since.
So what's been the most fascinating case that you are following? Tell our viewers over the years, which has been the case that really was the foundation for kicking this off?
Well, there's never been any one particular case, but as far as what it's named after, the Charley Project is named after a little boy who was abducted back in the 1870s. And when I was 14 years old, I happened to read about his case, and it was just such a tragic story all around. And the fact that it was stuck in my head for years. And when I had the opportunity to start this site and, give it a name, I decided to name it after him. He was abducted for ransom. And the thing is, ransom kidnapping thing at the time. In fact, kidnapping a child for ransom was not actually a criminal offense, simply because it did not happen. And so, because this was kind of, his father decided not to pay the ransom because he thought, they're just going to give this kid back when they realize they're not going to make any money. And if I pay the ransom, it's going to set a really bad example, and criminals will be snatching kids left and right. And I just got a good idea, and I think it would be better if I just didn't pay. And it backfired really badly. They never found his child.
From this poster that was created in 1874, Meaghan, it said that, and this, by the way, we're talking in Philadelphia, in the Germantown area of Philadelphia, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and so it said that at the time that the two boys, Charley and his brother, were abducted, and that they took the brother just down the street, dropped him off at a candy store to buy some candy, gave him 25 cents or something, if I remember the story right. And then, of course, he ran in to get some candy and fireworks, and they disappeared with the boy. And over the course of a year or more, they try to solicit a ransom of $20,000 from the father?
Yes, his father communicated back abductors and kind of strung them along all that time, hoping, the police will catch them and then they would recover the child. And it just didn't work out the way that he had hoped that it would. And the kidnappers were right. I don't think they were just some kind of losers, petty criminals who they got shot to death when they were robbing somebody's house after the kidnapping. And one of them lived long enough to confess. So where is Charley? And he's like, well, you're going to have to ask my partner. And they're like, yeah, your partner's dead.
Interesting.
And that was the end of it.
If I remember the story correctly, they immediately identified who the suspects were. One of them, apparently, much of his nose and face had eaten away from syphilis, if I remember right. Is that?
Yeah, Walter, Charley's brother, was a very good witness. I mean, that's kind of an indication these were not terribly. They took both boys and then let Walter get a good look at them and everything, and then let him go.
Yeah, that ransom back then, I'm looking at the values. It's about $471,000 in today's value.
Yeah, Christian, Charley's father, it wasn't like he had the money lying around, but he could have gotten it, if he had to. He chose not to pay because he thought that, it was to pay, and that would just set a very bad example for everybody. And the police supported him in this notion, and it was the wrong decision.
Interesting. So he's the inspiration for the project as a whole. So tell us how you operate in terms of connecting all the dots and how you gather your information. What's that process like?
Well, there are other missing persons databases online run by the organizations, and I'm constantly trolling through them, looking for information. And I regularly Google search terms in looking for missing persons news and so on. Every single day, try to do that no other site does is I take all the information available about a case from all the sources I can find and put it all in one spot and kind of tell the story in this essay type format. So if you want to look at a case, you can go in, instead of having to look at 20 different sources, you can just go to me.
So do you go ahead, Mike?
Go ahead, Chris. Well, this is great. I'm wondering how you decide what criteria to put in each description, other than these basic things in the narrative. How do you determine what you're going to put there? I
would rather put stuff in that doesn't need to be there because you never know what could possibly solve a case. So I try to include everything I can find. If it's publicly available, I'll put it in. A bit of gossip that, I find on some forum that doesn't even have anyone's real name on it. Of course I'm not going to put stuff like that in there. But if it's from what I consider to be a reputable source.
Yeah,
that's great.
How do you qualify that? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
No, how do you qualify that source?
Well, law enforcement, family members of the missing, and the websites made by those people, and podcasts, especially ones where they do actual interviews of the people involved.
Go ahead, Mike.
So you've talked about some of the things you do on the Charley Project. What are some things that you don't do?
Well, the Charley Project is I don't investigate cases myself. Catalog them And so the site can be used as an investigative tool. I'll often get people writing to me with tips on a case. I'm like, yeah, I can't do anything with that. You need to take this to the police. And I don't try to unidentified bodies. I leave that to other people who are better at it than me.
So you compile all the data.
Yeah.
Yeah, how long has Charley Project been up and running?
16 years now.
16. So, I mean, you were created probably after we quit working. But how many calls a week do you find you're getting from law enforcement? And do you have some success stories where Charley Project has actually helped identify someone?
I have had some success stories. I don't hear from law enforcement that often, and I don't contact them myself unless, I hear from them first, because I found it's generally not worth it because I'm a private citizen. They don't want to talk to me. But I have had some cases where people have been found as a direct what I have written about them. Recently, there was a case where a gentleman was actually found alive because he was listed on the Charley Project. And it really made me happy because this is the first time that's ever happened as far as. And I have to be kind of vague here about the details because I want to protect this person's privacy. But a man boarded a flight and he was behaving, and the flight attendants were a bit concerned about him. Not in a he might be a terrorist sort of way, but in a this guy doesn't seem to be right in the head sort of way. Not capable of taking care of himself sort of way. So I spent a lot of time during this flight, talking to him and just trying to keep him company. And after the flight landed, they asked one of their coworkers to look after him. And so the flight attendants and this guy parted ways. They thought, let's look up his name on the internet and see, what we can find out about him, because they were very concerned about this gentleman. And so they Googled his name, and then up popped his charge. He's been missing for 5 years. And so they go chasing him down. They find him with their coworker from the airline and talk to him and explain, did you know you've been missing for 5 years? And after some discussion, the police station in the town where he was at and identify himself and get the situation sorted. And this guy, he was mentally ill, and he had run away from a facility for people, mental illness going on. And it wasn't a good situation that he had been in. Later on, the facility got shut down for abuses. But he was also kind of not in a good situation where he was at. I mean, it turned out he aborted the clothes on his back. He had no phone, he had no luggage, no extra clothes, nothing. And I don't know what would have possibly become of him if, they had not realized that he was a missing and told him about this and gotten himself to go to the police, because I'm hoping that he got in touch with his family after that. I'm not sure what became of him, but I know that he did go to the police and he got himself, identified and removed from the missing.
That's fantastic. Meaghan, questions come in for you. It says, is it true that Charley was found in 1939 and that his adopted father was keeping him from kidnappers? And thank you, Mom 23 Kitties. Really appreciate your financial support.
No, Charley was never found, to the best of anyone's knowledge. I mean, there were people that popped up claiming to be Charley, and one guy actually went to court, right, to call himself Charley Ross, but the court only had the jurisdiction of that particular county, and I think it was like Arizona. So he could call himself Charley Ross when he was within the boundaries of that county in Arizona. But he he was none of the people who claimed to be enough case to convince his family, and obviously, DNA tests back then were not a thing.
Sure.
The case
Hey,
remains officially unsolved.
Meaghan, I just want to take a moment and just reintroduce you to everyone who's tuned in. We have Meaghan Good from the Charley Project, a clearinghouse for missing persons and unsolved cases. Meaghan created this website. She is an amazing human being who has taken her own personal passion for missing person cases and focused it for good in building this. And she just revealed to everyone that she struggles with autism, and this is an area that she really focused on, something that's characteristic of those who have autism. We are so grateful to have you here, Meaghan. I found it interesting because there was a Charlie Brewster, who some people have confused with Charlie Brewster Ross, who I think was in the entertainment field or something, wasn't he? But the two entirely different people. And I believe he was murdered as well.
You're thinking of Punky Brewster from the 80s.
I don't know.
The old cartoon.
So Meaghan, how does someone get their loved one on your site? What's the process?
Well, I have to know about the case. I have to know that they're missing, and the person has to be officially listed as missing with law enforcement, and it has to be, and they have to have been missing at least a year. That's
and then
pretty
at
much
least 1 year. Does it have to be reported, did you say, to a police department?
Yeah, I mean, there has to be an official law enforcement report out there, because some people who just don't want to be in touch with their families. And the last thing I want to do is interfere with those people's lives by saying they're a missing person when they're not, and I could probably get sued for that also. Enforcement report on file for them.
Yeah.
Is there one case that sticks with you, Meaghan, that you're not going to let go? Is there a single one?
There are a particular profile of cases that tend to upset me. The child abuse ones, they really make me angry. When a child disappeared, their caregivers were abusing them and probably killed them. The case in Hawaii, Peter Kemmer, for the longest time I pronounced it Kema, but it turns out it's Kemmer. But anyway, he disappeared back in '90s. Supposed to be under the supervision of CPS in Hawaii. He was living with his parents, but CPS was supposed to be keeping an eye on them because he had been in foster care, and they weren't keeping a good enough eye on him. And for anybody who cared, realized that he was missing, and it was just an enormous mess. And then over a decade after he disappeared, the Hawaii Department of Human Services got a new director who said, we want transparency in this case, and we want to show everybody how badly we screwed up in this little boy's case. And so they put the entire case file, normally confidential documents in the child welfare system, they put them online for him. And so you could read all of the psychological evaluations of his parents and the reports that have been filed about it. There were 3,000 pages or so in this file, all available for download online. And I downloaded it all and nailed my butt to the seat of a chair and summarized it all out of pages and summarized them on the Charley Project. And so you can tell there about how this child basically tortured. And just all the details. He was literally made to eat like dog, other things like that. And the thing is, he kept getting taken away from his parents and then being given back and taken away and given back. And it just made me so angry. And I was thinking, even if nothing happens, you know, in terms of criminal, to know what they did to that little boy.
Yeah, that's the human spirit's capable of some pretty crazy things, that's for sure. So I have a question for you. Do you have your list there? Can you check to see if you got a name in there? I'm just curious. If
Sure.
not, I want to add her. So Leticia, Letecia Hernandez.
Have her. At least not under that spelling.
Do you have any Leticia Hernandez? If not, we're going to add her. I want to ask you to add her. December 16th, 1989. And you can look her up on the web.
I will have to see about adding her. So she's been missing since then?
Yep, and I was one of the investigators on her case, so you can add her. Guaranteed.
I'll see about doing that.
I appreciate that. And I cannot wait to see what you come up with, because you're the kind of young lady that I definitely would want adding Leticia to that list. She was a little girl kidnapped out of her front yard.
I'm surprised I haven't heard about her before.
No, you're okay. There's a lot of those, I'm sure.
Yeah, unfortunately, there are a lot. Meaghan, there's a question. Is there anything that we in the public can do, and this is from CJ Sleuth, to refocus law enforcement on someone who's part of the Charley Project? Does that make sense? Is there something we can do to help raise attention to someone on the Charley Project and get law enforcement to revisit their case?
Publicity always helps. If you can convince, you know, a local news agency to write about the case, and if needs be, by throwing together some kind of event, candlelight vigils, they do a lot of those. And then, you know, of course, then the news will be writing an article saying they did this candlelight vigil for this missing person, and sometimes that gets.
Yeah. Mimi J2 says, did I read that they have to be missing a year to qualify for the project? And yes, Meaghan answered that they need to be gone for 1 year before she puts them on her site. Is that correct, Meaghan?
Yeah, that is correct. 365 days. In some cases, unfortunately, people don't get reported missing for a long time. So if a person disappeared 20 years ago, but only just got still been missing 20 years.
Yeah. So we have a couple of missing moms since Mother's Day. One is Suzanne Morphew and the other is Echo Lloyd. If you come across any information on either of those two, have you had a chance to look into those yet? I know it's only 6 months in, but.
I've heard of Suzanne. I've seen the headlines in her case. I'm not sure if I've heard of the other one, Echo.
Okay.
And Echo's daughter is on tonight, typing here and listening in, Meaghan. So we'll get Kelsey to come on one evening and we'll talk about her mom and see if jointly with you we can maybe raise that one up a little bit. There's a question from JRS. Do you do fundraising, and how do you manage doing this for so many years? Well,
my husband he teaches at a residential treatment center for children with like behavioral and like mental health issues. But I've got, in the last couple of years, I set up a little PayPal donation thing on the regular users to contribute a voluntary subscription of, and I suggested $3 a month. Now, the thing is, if all of my regular users did that, I could be like buying a house on the, but this is the internet. But I make about as much on the Charley Project as I did in terms of take-home pay at the only actual job I ever had, which was as a stock girl at Walmart. Plus, I don't have, the commute, so there's that.
Well,
But
good.
if you want to give me money, certainly I'm not going to turn that down. I have the PayPal link on my site.
Good for you.
Well, folks, we've been talking with Meaghan Good of the Charley Project. She is the creator of the Charley Project webpage. You now have more than 13,000 missing persons and homicide cases on that site, don't you, Meaghan?
Yes, I do.
Well, we are so grateful for all of your work and for your effort in protecting those whose voices become unheard. It is amazing to be able to spend time with you. If you get a chance, go back and read the chats that are out there and the complimentary things that are being said. It's the Charley Project, folks, charleyproject.org. And Meaghan, do you personally answer all of the incoming correspondence to the site?
I personally read it. Unfortunately, a lot of times my inbox overflows and I can't reply to everything, but I do read everything. And normally Facebook, the Charley Project has a Facebook page, and I'm available to get messages on that. Unfortunately, right now I'm in Facebook jail.
Why are you in jail, Meaghan? Why are you in jail?
Facebook didn't like a picture I shared. It was a historical image, and they decided that it went against their terms of service. Facebook has been going really crazy lately with giving people and putting people in Facebook jail, which basically means your account is you can't use your account for a set amount of time, and I have a really big interest in history, particularly World War II history and the Holocaust. Shared a sarcastic meme that had a picture of Hitler on it, and then Facebook. The thing is, most of their moderation is done by robots. The robots interpreted this as a pro-Nazi image when, in fact, it was an anti-Nazi image, and so I got put in Facebook. Yeah, so unfortunately, I can't. The Charley Project page will be inactive for a month because of that.
Oh wow!
Well, so there's a question from Sharon.
I do have a blog too.
Oh, go ahead.
What kind of dog do you have?
A blog.
I have a blog.
Oh, I thought you said dog. You have a dog too.
No, I have a dog too.
And a blog, a dog blog.
Yes, I have a missing persons blog.
Yeah.
And you can find the blog and stuff on the Charley Project down in the section at the bottom where it says resources. Or wait, blog is under information. Sorry.
That's great.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
Well, so Meaghan, there's a question. If you could look up whether you have Prisma Denise Reyes on the list. And while you do that, I want to just remind everyone as we talk with Meaghan, we're with Meaghan Good of the Charley Project. And there are a lot of questions folks have, Chris, about why there are numerous databases doing things sometimes similar, sometimes a little differently. And I'd like to talk about that as we kind of wrap up with Meaghan here. And Vicki Dodd, thank you so much for that kind donation. She's got a question. Also, we'll let you answer the first one, and then we're going to ask you about another person here. So, Miss Reyes, do you have Miss Reyes on your list?
I do not have her. I'm going to have to add her the next time I update.
That's great. And now we'd like to see about if you have Morgan Violi, Violi.
No, I don't have her because her body was actually found. She's not missing anymore. Yeah, she was a homicide victim, a child who was abducted, and then they found her, and it's an unsolved murder case. It's not a missing persons case.
So, Vicki, did you know that? It looks like you did know that she was found murdered in Tennessee, so that's why she's not on the list. So that's great. You know, Meaghan, this problem in the United States, and it is consistent throughout the world. The numbers might even be worse in our underdeveloped countries. We often talk about that on Profiling Evil, but in the United States, according to the National Crime Information Center, there are roughly 600,000 people that come up missing every year. In the Bureau of Justice Statistics, there are 800,000. Just to kind of show how important all of these different channels are, I wanted to just point out, just a few minutes before getting on with you tonight, I pulled down all of the data from NamUs, the missing persons website that is run through the Department of Justice. And in just the state of Florida, they show 1,546 missing people. And the thing that's so interesting here, and Chris, you and I have talked about this before, but is then if you look at the state's records, according to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, there's 146 people missing. That's a huge difference. You know, that's 10% of the numbers we're looking at here. And then as we go in and look at other databases like the FBI's VICAP program, the numbers are minuscule to even FDLE's numbers. And what it does is it tells us that it is absolutely imperative that we have these individual projects like the Charley Project or the FBI's VICAP program or the DOE network or NamUs, and that sadly, we have to continue to bounce from one to another in order to really understand what the missing person problem is, because out of that 800,000 every year, sadly, only about 83,000 of those people will never be heard of again. And that's a huge number. So Meaghan, thank you so much for what you do on the Charley Project. You are making a difference. You have impacted the world. And we are just honored that you would take time tonight to come on and visit with the Profiling Evil family.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's here. You know, it's nice to be appreciated. It's nice to hear people like me.
You are a superstar, and don't forget that. People are gonna know. They're gonna know you, and they're gonna go, "Hey, yeah, that's Meaghan," and you're doing great work. You're doing very noble work. What you're doing to put your talent into something that can make a difference. So we salute you, and good job. Keep it up.
Meaghan, will you come back one day?
Sure.
Great. Thank you so much. We'll have you bring the dog, the cat. We'll have you bring the whole family.
Yeah, bring your dog, cat, everything. Bring them all.
I would like to numbers that you were talking about. Well, to begin with, you mentioned the number 800,000, and the thing is, it is a really scary number, you know, to hear that, you know, almost 1 million people go missing in this country every year. The thing that you need to consider also is that quite a few of most of those people, the overwhelming majority, do get found. And in fact, when you look, it's 800,000 reports filed. And listed in those reports, it's like chronic runaways where the same person will get reported missing 12 times inside of a year, and they'll keep getting found. And almost all missing persons cases are resolved one way or the other inside. But, you know, the longer they're gone, the more likely it is that something terrible has happened to them. And
yeah. You are absolutely right.
There is a dearth of resources and just not enough information out there. And as far as NamUs goes, they have some issues on there with I think being, a federal government bureaucracy going on, but unfortunately, there are cases on there that have actually been resolved long ago. The person was found, and as it is my understanding that the rule in NamUs is they can't remove a case until the investigator tells them, hey, this person got found, could you take that down now? And the thing is, law enforcement people have a lot to do, and when a person gets located, notifying NamUs is generally not the first thing on their mind. And so...
Yeah, you are absolutely right, Meaghan, and I don't want to cut you off. We need to move on to another segment here, but to make it very clear, you are absolutely right. It is an accounting problem. It is a business problem.
Oh, yeah.
That's why it's so imperative that we continue to work toward having a database that actually is solid and working, but it requires so much to have happen. That's why what you do is so important. Meaghan, thank you so much for being with us tonight. We'll have you back again, and have a great evening.
So everybody stay safe, wash your hands, please wear a mask when you go out, make sure it covers your nose as well as your mouth.
Thanks,
Awesome.
Meaghan.
Great advice. Thank you, Meaghan.
Great to be with you. Goodbye.
We appreciate you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
What a delightful person.
She's awesome.
I want to go back to something, Chris, that we were talking about there, and that is that she's right. The majority, 87% of that 800 or 600,000, and there's some discrepancy even in the Bureau of Justice about what the number is, which should be kind of a notice to us too, that we're not collaborating and coordinating back and forth. But 87% will come home. But that means that 83,000 to 104,000 every single year will disappear and never be heard from again. That is a bigger amount than the majority of U.S. cities that we have. That's wiping an entire city off the map. It's just incredible to me.
Yeah, and that's a lot of moms and dads too. There's endless pain there for these families. There's no closure, and that's why missing people are so, in homicide, right? They call it the first 48, but in a missing persons case, it's the first 72. So you've got 72 hours to lock, what we used to call lock and load. And I can remember to this day, December 16th, 1989, when 7-year-old Leticia Hernandez disappeared out of her front yard. And she just evaporated. And, we found her a year and a half later. Unfortunately, she was deceased, victim of a homicide. But that moment, those days, I mean, they just go forever. And those parents, I can remember just sitting there with her mom and just not having any answers. And there's nothing you can say. You can only do and kind of put it to motivation. So yeah, that's a great point, Mike. Good point.
Yeah, this is something else. Well, folks, it's choir practice. We have a little time left. Why don't you shoot some questions over to us, and we'll ask the boys in the back office to get us some information. I'd like to throw a curveball, and I believe.
Oh boy.
I believe we had Tim on last week talking about a project that he's been working on, and he's looking pretty comfortable in the back room. Why don't we bring him back on to share with us what's coming down the pike for folks from Profiling Evil?
I love Seagram's. It's the best ginger ale.
Well, I hope we can get some kind of collateral out of that. Tim, where are we?
Hi.
Hey.
What did I miss?
What's going on? How's the drill? What's going on?
Oh, investigating old buildings? Is that?
Yeah.
Is that?
It's your MO.
Well,
let's go.
Well, wow, that's completely unexpected. All right, so we have some access to some old buildings in historic downtown Ogden. the town where Mike served on the police department, so he might have some history that he can share as well. But yeah, there are some access points and basements that were assumed to be built, during the Prohibition days, where people would run alcohol underneath the buildings and not get caught. And there was all sorts of other unmentionable activities that happen. Anyway, we just want to see what's behind these access points that have been boarded up and sealed up. And so on my YouTube channel, I actually got with Tyler and we tried to see what was on the other side of one of these walls. Spoiler alert, we were unsuccessful, but we have found what we need to dig a little bit deeper. So there will be a part 2.
Yeah, and I don't know. Is this in the basement of Tyler's business?
It's somewhere in downtown Ogden.
Yeah. Okay.
Could be.
So Chris, he's got an O on his hat, and I think he's going to tell us that stands for Ogden or O-Town.
Dryer vent to see if
You're an OG.
But in reality, here they are working on that.
Oh. Okay, wait,
let's watch this for a minute.
But pause that just for a second. Okay, so I saw this the other day when this came out, okay? I was cracking up. This was hysterical. The first thing that came to my mind, remember the movie Jaws?
Yeah.
And remember the shark came up behind the boat, okay? And he turned and he says, you're going to need a bigger boat.
Yep.
When I saw the drill that Tyler held up, and then I looked at that wall, I thought, they're going to need a bigger drill. Go ahead. This is hysterical.
That's funny you mentioned that, because in part 2, I was like, I have to use that line. All right, so slower going than we thought it would be. So if we started there, we're going to try this hole. Yeah, get tactful. So let me tell you what we're doing. Downtown Ogden is known to have bootlegger tunnels, where during the Prohibition, people would get off the train and drink alcohol down below the city, or they'd smuggle alcohol down through the tunnels. So we're close to 25th Street, which is where these tunnels are. And we have access to this building in the basement. And what's behind these doors has always been a mystery. So we figured we'd drill a hole in. This back area doesn't seem like it might work out because it's thicker than 12 inches, which is what that drill bit is.
So these are old speakeasy tunnels, basically.
Yeah, yep, exactly. And I think calling them tunnels is a misnomer. It's more they just built connections in between the basements of the buildings. And don't you have a story about that? Don't you, Mike, going down in there and finding a vagrant, or am I?
Oh yeah, we used to find bodies down there from time to time, and they were originally used in that same period of Prohibition as opium dens, they called them. And down in the opium pits, they would gamble and do drugs, and of course during Prohibition, drink alcohol. And if you know the area, it was where the Golden Spike was driven. So the Eastern Railroad and the Western Railroad, the Transcontinental Railroad, was joined nearby, and it was really a hub. In fact, during World War II, there were millions of people every month or year. I can't remember the numbers, but it was the busiest train depot in the Western United States, which is kind of interesting. But Tim, it's always fun to throw you under the bus and just see what you got to say. And that looks like such a fun project. We'll have you come back. I mean, we talked about that a little bit when we were talking about the ghosts of downtown. So.
Yeah, Tim, we love your channel. Give a plug for your channel. Pitch your channel. Tim,
well, I'd rather be driving the bus than getting thrown under it. So when you guys go on tour, I'll be your bus driver.
You're hysterical. We love you, man. We just think your stuff is fantastic. If you want to know anything about hiking or anything about adventures, I mean, he just unfurled the largest flag. What a tribute that was, Tim. I went back and watched that video again. That was fantastic. Thanks for doing that. That was really big.
wanted to document the group that does it. So yeah, it was really cool. So, well,
Yeah,
it's always fun coming on, getting uncomfortable. If you're not uncomfortable, you're not growing. So
what are you going to do? What are you going to do for Christmas coming up here? Are you going to find Santa? What do we got going?
Investigate Santa Claus, see if he's down there.
Let's go. Let's go. Go.
There will be a few more videos like that actually. So
Okay.
hopefully with Tyler again, and then I have a buddy who also has a salon on 25th Street whose basement also connects out into those. So yeah, so it's kind of a series that I want to do, especially now it's getting colder outside. So thank you guys.
Awesome.
No,
Make sure you subscribe, guys. Subscribe to his channel and get over there and watch these adventures. They're awesome. Tim's a good man.
Appreciate it.
And everybody out there, this is the time of year that we really ought to be looking outward instead of inward. Last weekend, my wife and I had the chance to go out to the Cops and Crops event, which was the Utah farmers and law enforcement got together to take all the surplus food and 1,000+ turkeys and made sure that people had a chance to go out and have a turkey at Thanksgiving. And it was just an incredible experience. Hats off to Sheriff Arbin of the Weber County Sheriff's Office. The sheriff reached out to the Utah farmers and put this together, and then all 15 law enforcement agencies in the region came in to help on that. And when my wife and I got there, Chris, there were at least 400 cars lined up down through a parking lot and down the street. And at the last count we saw, they had given Thanksgiving meals to more than 1,500 families. So that's what this time of year is all about. And folks, we hope that you, if you have the means, are digging deep and giving it to charities that you know will spend the money wisely. And that's a challenge always. And to Avalon Apples, why don't you answer her question, Chris? As we can only say a little bit until tomorrow, but we can at least talk a little bit.
Yeah, it's about a missing mom out of Kansas. And we had an opportunity to bring some information forward, but we're not allowed to say until tomorrow by the rules. So go watch it tomorrow. And Tim's channel, we had another question in there as well. Tim Sessions, can we put Tim's channel up there? And then, Mike, getting back to your point about giving, right? I think a lot of folks forget that my son went to Weber State and I'm going to be a police officer. Way to go, Mom, 23 kittens. That's awesome. A
great law enforcement program, actually, at Weber State University, Chris.
Yeah, are you teaching there still? Or you?
No. I'm down to just one university now.
Okay, you're like spinning plates.
Yeah.
No, but a lot of people forget that these guys and gals that are out there, right? I mean, on all the holidays, you and I both know that when you first start at the job, you were going to pull that shift, right? But there was always that vet. There was always that guy or gal who would come in and say, "Hey, kid, how many children do you have?" And if you had 2 or 3 kids, he'd say, "Okay, go home. I got your shift." And, there was always that guy. And then there was always the kid that didn't have that in the smaller departments. But, this is a time to remember these, folks, firefighters, nurses, doctors, cops. We just go down the list of those who are serving each of us. I mean, I can think just my own time pushing a car at midnight. I don't know what you guys did for like New Year's and stuff, but our dispatch would come out and you'd hear the radio go beep, 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 beep. And they say code 33, all units seek cover now. And they would tell you to get underneath garages because they knew it was midnight. And in California, fireworks was illegal. But it just went boom, boom, boom. And what goes up must come down. And so, Dispatch was thinking ahead of us, and God bless our dispatchers. Mike, we got to do a show on dispatchers.
That would be great.
They've got some great stories, and man, are they out there saving lives, you know. And the other thing is, obviously, you get a chance to give back to the community. I mean, one of my fondest memories was this there were a variety of families at one of the hotels in town, and they were destitute. And at the end of a long shift, everybody got together, pulled up a bunch of money, went out, bought a bunch of stuff, and dropped a whole bunch of presents on a bunch of kids. And Shop with a Cop, that's still a popular program. Toys for Tots with the military side of things. Man, there's a lot that they give, and a lot to be grateful for. So, what do we got here? Do you have to have a college degree to become a police officer? Most of the time they require it now. I mean, not all agencies, but yeah, you should at least have an associate's of some sort.
Yeah, that's a tough one, because law enforcement is really struggling to get personnel now, and standards that may have existed a few years ago we're seeing be reduced in order to try to get personnel in there. I always remark that it's interesting to me in my home state, Chris. The police academy was 10 weeks long. It was 400 hours. It takes 1,000 hours to get a barber's license in the state of Utah. So we were requiring more for someone to become a barber and man a pair of clippers on hair than to give a person a weapon and the right under certain circumstances to even take a life. There's a weird disparity that goes on in our profession and many others. But yeah, it's always wonderful to have educated people, but it's just as valuable to have the educated street kid who can come in and really understands the street as well. So it's that's why it's so important that we have training programs, and law enforcement has training that is nonstop. Once you get in, you're not done. You're required to train every single year constantly. So,
yeah,
well,
that's a good point.
It's been a great week, Chris. Anything you want to add?
When it rains, walk between the raindrops.
What? That's deep.
It's that simple. Sometimes life is like that, and you've got to figure out what that means, and you get there as a human being. The other thing is we're all good people. This is difficult times in our country. It's a difficult time for law enforcement, for public safety as a whole, but for people. We're watching some of the rates of I had a very dear friend of mine, just recently pass away, self-inflicted. And it devastated me for a couple of days because there's a whole bunch of other things going on under the behind the wall, for lack of a better term. And that's, because of the COVID, because of, this disassociation from friends and family and others. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. I think this is unprecedented. And so we need to be good to each other. And I think this channel brings a lot of goodness. We we try to be as positive as we can here for you. And, that's just our nature. But Mike and I, we're grateful that you're here with us, and we're grateful that you subscribe to us. And hopefully you can keep, passing that on to somebody that may need a lift for a day. We're hoping, the other thing that I like to always say is the greatest exercise you'll ever do is lift somebody else up. And as long as you can focus on that principle, if it rains, walk between the raindrops, and the other is lift somebody else up. That's great exercise. And take care of each other. We need each other for sure. And, other than that, life is good, Mike. I have no complaints,
Well, there you go. Tomorrow, folks, we start December. Make it a great month. Whatever the holiday opportunity is for you, we wish you the very best as you go through it. It's a great time of year for people to reflect on things. And Thursday night we'll have Dr. Spencer Cheney on talking about
Don't miss that.
geographic profiling. So I think you'll enjoy what he's got on there. And then we'll see you next Monday for choir practice. And next Monday, we're really looking forward to it. We have a police chief joining us to talk about the things that she is doing in her city to stem some of the challenges that law enforcement's faced in the last 12 months. So that should be really good. So from all of us at Profiling Evil, from the back office, Chris, from me, thank you. And to all of you, thanks and have a great evening.
Good night.